You all right there guys, this is Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft, and today we're taking a look at the JG Bar-10 bolt action sniper rifle. Now if you've not seen one of these videos before, the way I always do is I put video links up there and there, so if there's a specific part you want to skip ahead to, just click on any of those and it's going to go straight to that part. So I've owned this gun for about 4 to 5 months now, so I've really gotten to know it. I've gotten a lot of hours during game days with it, I know its quirks, and most importantly I've given it a chance to break. So without further ado, we're just going to dive straight on into the review. So the real steel counterpart of the JG Bar-10 is the Remington M700. That rifle was originally manufactured in 1962 and in some form or another is still being manufactured to this day. It's available in a ridiculously varied amount of caliber bullets. You can get it from the .17 Remington, which was mainly used for small game and pest hunting purposes, all the way up to the .338 Lapua and .458 Winchester Magnum rounds. Depending upon the size of the bullets, the gun would be supplied with either a 3, 4 or 5 internal round magazine. This one is obviously based upon the legendary Tokyo Marui VSR, and as such all the internal components are completely compatible with VSR upgrade parts. Because of that, it's been quite popular for a number of years, because if you planned on ripping out the internals of your gun anyway and improving them, why would you spend more money on a higher quality standard version when you can get the cheaper lower quality one and just replace all the parts anyhow? I bought this gun from Airsoft Sniper Parts UK, otherwise known as ASP UK, for £130. It's currently out of stock on their website, but they do update the stock often, and they also supply a lot of Airsoft Sniper upgrade parts anyway, so I'm going to drop a link to their website in the description down below if you want to check it out. So what exactly do you get when you order a JG Bar-10? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is you're not really going to get a box as such. What the gun's going to turn up in is this just here, which is essentially a giant polystyrene block with a half cardboard cover on it. It's not a complete box. So I actually kept the tags holding this cardboard cover in place, because when I'm transporting the gun everywhere, I don't want the lid of that to fall off and everything to fall out of it. Inside, however, obviously you're going to find your JG Bar-10 sniper rifle, a single 20 round magazine, and the scope rings and the top rail are all included with it as well. The scope's adjustable for windage, elevation. It's also got a couple of illuminated features, red or green in various intensities as well, which is quite nice. Also in the box you have a single speed loader, which is very thoughtful of them to include because you've got a single low cap mag. You've got a small box containing all your tools that you're going to need to put the top rail onto the gun itself and take off the iron sights. You also get a paper target for shooting at, your token packet of rubbishy BBs. Don't use these, get yourself some proper ones. And you also get a manual which is written in laughably bad Chinglish, honestly. Reading through this can be a bit of a challenge at sometimes. I'll just quote something from you here. Don't pull the trigger except you want to shoot. It is very danger if pulled trigger because of spring. Which, as we know, is very wise words. But even if you can't make heads or tails of the Chinglish in this, there are some very helpful diagrams. So if you can't read what it's trying to say properly, the diagrams do actually explain quite well what it's trying to say to you. So considering there's no frills on the box itself, actually when you're considering it, you're getting a hell of a lot for 130 quid. The scope is much appreciated, because often with high-end sniper rifles they don't include a scope, it just comes as it is with the gun. And so to get a decent quality one on top of that for 130 quid, you're getting a hell of a lot for your money. So the first thing you're going to notice when you pick up the JG Bar-10 is just how light the thing is. This is mainly due to the fact that unlike its Tokyo Marui counterpart, the stock is completely hollow. This makes the whole thing incredibly lightweight, so you're not chugging around any dead weight. So it's very manoeuvrable and very easy to chuck this thing around the field. Also, the stock has a quite nice rubberized texture to it. Now, I know some people aren't a fan of this, but I kind of like it. It's just grippy enough so that it feels comfortable, but not so grippy that it feels like your hand's sticking to it. So quite like that, and in fact, aside from the price tag, the stock is the main reason I wanted this over the VSR, because I knew I was going to eventually upgrade it. The bolt pull itself is actually quite light when you pull it back the first time, but there is a little bit of friction in between the components here, so it takes a little bit of practice to get a smooth motion with it, but it is easy to do once you've actually mastered it. The trigger pull itself, it's got about a centimetre of travel on it. Now what I've noticed is that once you start squeezing that trigger, if you let go, it actually stays in place. So if you're sighted down a target and you start slowly squeezing the trigger and he wanders off or behind cover, you just let go of your finger and you've got yourself a smaller trigger pull for once you re-engage him. What surprised me most about this gun though is that it doesn't feel as cheap as you know it is. I was expecting something really quite tacky and flimsy, but the only thing rattling on it are the sling mounts here. The gun itself is actually incredibly solid, and I've been resting this up against trees, bashing it against things on my way, and actually it does feel really quite solid and planted considering how cheap the thing is. Surprisingly good, I think, she's going to be your first impression. So let's take a look at some of the features of the gun. Now, the main one, obviously, is because this is a bolt-action spring-powered rifle, you have to cock the bolt to pull the spring back after every shot so that it'll fire the next one. So, as I said earlier, the pull itself is actually quite smooth. It's a little bit of resistance to it, but it's quite light, so it can take a little bit of practice to get a quick reload off, but it is possible to do. One thing you need to bear in mind with this, though, is this handle needs to go all the way down before the gun will actually fire. If you leave it in the upwards position like this, nothing's happening. Even if it's close to its resting position, but not quite there, still nothing. It has to go all the way down and then it will fire. So this can catch you out sometimes if you're trying to pull off a quick reload and don't put it in all the way. The bolt handle actually leads on to the next feature and minor complaint about the gun, and that's the safety. Safety is located just here on the right. It's easily accessible by your thumb, so it's quite comfortable to use. But what I don't like about it is if you don't pull the handle up high enough before you pull it back, you've just knocked the gun unsafe. So then when you return it, go to fire, nothing happens. This has caught me out more times than I care to mention. It's incredibly infuriating, so much so that it's now routine for me that after every single bolt change, I just push it forward just to make sure that it is actually there. It catches you out that much. Next thing about the gun is the mag. Now, obviously, because this is a clone of the VSR, the mag's in the wrong place. On the real gun, it should be located just there, but it's actually located here at the front. Now, I have absolutely no trouble with the mag whatsoever. It's fed perfectly, even down to the last round. It really does its job well. But what I do raise my eyebrows at is the position of the mag release. It's this little button just here at the front. Now, as I say, it does its job perfectly well. You just have to make sure the mag clicks when you push it in, because sometimes if you fit it flush but it hasn't clicked, it's not in, it won't feed, and it may fall out. So that's something that can catch you out. But because of the position of the button, if you like run up to a tree or a barricade or something and you go to rest the gun down on it to get a more stable shot, if you rest it on that button, the mag's going to fall out. Now this caught me out on the very first day I took this skirmishing, and I nearly lost my one and only mag in the very first game, which would have been incredibly infuriating. But as I say, it does its job, it's just in a really dumb place. The next feature is the hop-up unit, which I absolutely despise. The adjuster is located just here. Now, the hop itself, it does the job. It does have a sweet spot where it'll get you decent distance without too much upward curvature, but trying to adjust the thing is a real challenge in of itself. Because it's a slider type, it's very stiff. So what this means is that it's not going to change its settings when you're running around and playing with it all day, but trying to adjust the thing, it's so fiddly. You can put a load of pressure on it before it will actually start to move, and I can guarantee you when it does start to move, it'll go all the way on or all the way off. There is no middle ground. Trying to get it into the right position is a real fiddly challenge, and I just cannot be bothered with it on some days. It is so hard to do. So in terms of features, this gun can be incredibly irritating, but in terms of reliability, it has been absolutely flawless. Over the months, I've had no troubles with this gun whatsoever. The only thing that might catch you out is double feeding, where if you don't pull the spring back all the way and before you push it forward, it'll load around into the chamber anyway. And so when you realise this and go to pull the next one, you'll fire 2 shots at once, and of course they won't go wherever the hell you want them, and you've wasted 2 rounds and a bit of time. But if you can master the bolt pull, then you're going to have no troubles with this gun whatsoever. So when I was last down at the Matlock Combat Games Woodland site, I managed to get in a shooting test with this gun. Now, I was lying prone when I was taking the test at 30 metres, so I was trying to get as much of a stable shot as I could with it. Now, unlike the other shooting tests where I use a .25, I was using a .3 in this one. This is mainly because the hop-up, even when completely off, will send a .25 skywards every time. So, as much as I'd like to have used a 2.5 to keep all the results consistent between reviews, I couldn't in this case physically. There was a little bit of a crosswind on the day that you need to keep in mind as well, that were blowing the shot slightly off to the left, and try and take a bit of human error into account with these results. So as can be seen from the shooting test target, almost all of the shots actually managed to connect with it. There wasn't so much on the target itself that could get you what a spread pattern's kind of like, but from my personal experience, the shots always go downwards in a very predictable arc. There's very little left to right movement, but it tends to favour going left ever so slightly. Now, if you set up your scope right, you can eliminate that entirely because it's compensating for it, but I particularly like the fact that there's very little left to right deviation in the shots. They always go directly downwards in a good arc, so it makes it very predictable and easy to hit targets with. So also when I was at the Man Up Combat Games Woodland site, I managed to get in a chronograph test with the gun. Now the chrono test was taken with a 0.2 gram BB. So as can be seen from the chrono results, the shots tend to vary from 396 at a minimum to about 410, 413 maximum. So around about the 400, 405 mark. Now what this means is obviously it's more than 350, so you do have a minimum engagement range of 20 metres on almost all airsoft sites in the UK that you need to bear in mind. But there is certainly room for improvement if you wanted to bang in a more powerful spring. Personally, I think it does the job range-wise. If you can get the hop up just right, you can easily get shots out to about 50, 60 metres and still be accurate. But it's not so good that AEGs are completely outranged by it. If someone does spot you with it, then someone is going to actually be able to turn around and shoot you with it, maybe because you don't have quite as much power as you'd like. So where do you want to be on the airsoft field to get the absolute most out of this gun? Well, from my experience, there's about 3 different styles of play that I found that tend to work well with this platform, and I'll just give you a quick rundown of what they are. The first is the traditional interpretation of the sniper. Now that's where you keep low, you move slowly, you crawl through the undergrounds to get to a good final firing position, take a couple of shots and then move on before anyone knew you were there. Now you can do this with this gun, but it's not particularly great at it. Because as standard you do have decent range and accuracy with it, but if you get someone who's got a very high quality AEG and they're just inside your range, they can turn around and start hosing. If they put enough rounds down range, one of them's eventually going to hit you. The biggest challenge, however, is actually managing to stay under the enemy team's radar. Even if you've got like a full ghillie suit or something, because the average engagement range is about 30, 40, 50 metres or so, people are going to see you even if you're very highly camouflaging that just when you're moving around. So it takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice to make that style of play work. It's not one that I found favoured this rifle particularly well, especially if you come in a counter sniper situation, because someone who else has a dedicated sniper platform, chances are they're going to outrange you and they've got better accuracy than you do. So just something to keep in mind. I don't really think the traditional role of a sniper works so well with this one. You can do it, but you might find it a bit of a challenge. The next style of play is what I like to call the marksman. That's where you hang around with a squad of your fellow airsofters when they're going around, and because you've got slightly more range and accuracy than the guys with the AEGs, you can support them, you can go around the flanks and try and take people out. If you can get you guys with AEGs to suppress a target, you go around the side to an unseen angle and take them out from there. This does tend to work quite well. There are just a couple of things you need to worry about. Obviously, again, if someone's got a high quality AEG, you are going to be in their range of fire, and if they put enough rounds down, they will hit you. But also try not to stray too far from your squad. If you get too far away from them, you might find yourself isolated and without backup entirely. So try and keep with your teammates if you're running that. The last one is the one that I favour because it lends itself to the one real advantage that this gun gives you, and that's how light and mobile it is, and that's the scout sniper. What happens with this one is as soon as game on is called, you sprint off into the distance as fast as you can, either directly towards the enemy or slightly on the flanks. What you want to be doing is getting to around the midpoint where you'd expect the engagement to happen with the enemy team, dig in and wait for them to come to you. Because the instant you engage that enemy team, you stop them from advancing, they're going to seek cover, and that gives the rest of your guys time to advance in behind you and claim the objectives while you keep the enemy down. Now, obviously, the danger of this is if the enemy team realises that it's just a lone sniper on his own, you're going to get swamped very quickly when they're coming from all different directions. Obviously, as well, you're going to have to put in a lot of legwork with this. You have to be a quick runner. If you can't move that fast, then this one definitely isn't for you. But for me personally, nobody expects an aggressive sniper, and that's something I capitalise on in so many games. I always get at least 1 or 2 kills almost consistently with all the games because of this. They just don't expect to see a sniper so early on in the game. If you can make it work, it's very rewarding, but it is a very high risk thing. Ultimately, however, these are just a couple of different styles that I found with it. You're going to have to find your own. But what I'd really recommend is if you're thinking of sniping, borrow someone else's gun first, play a game with it, see if you like it. because it's a totally different style to what AEG gameplay is like. You are always outgunned, even if you're outranging people. And so you have to keep a much more of a low profile. It's very hard to get used to, and some people just flat out don't like it, which is fair enough to them. So try one, borrow it, just play through a game and see if you like it before you invest. So ultimately then, is the JG Bar-10 worth buying? Well, considering it's only 130 quid and you get absolutely everything in one package that you could possibly need to get started in sniping, I think it almost certainly is. What I will say, however, is make sure you actually have a go at sniping first. Borrow someone else's gun, play a game with it and see if you like the style. Because even though 130 quid is dirt cheap for an airsoft gun, it is still 130 quid down the drain if you buy it and it turns out you just don't like the play style. The features on this gun can be incredibly irritating, even if they do have a workaround and you can live them. But the reliability of this gun has been absolutely flawless. I've had zero mechanical problems with this whatsoever. It's been incredibly reliable. So if you're looking for a cheap way to get into airsoft sniping, then definitely consider getting a JG Bar-10. It certainly does the job for me. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video review of the JG Bar-10 bolt action sniper rifle. If you have any questions you'd like to leave, maybe you'd like to share your experiences with the gun yourself, just leave them in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, this has been Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft.